It's a brand new week. Welcome to the Economy and Politics Show, where we discuss policy, politics, economy, investments, and how it affects the Nigerian populace. Since this new decade of 2020, the quest to attain sustainable development has continued to be at the front burner of conversations across the globe, and Nigeria is not left out of this. It has also called for the need to now strategically implement the Sustainable Development Goals, which has 17 goals components, which the government and the private sector are working tirelessly to see how it can be achieved. Currently, according to the United Nations Development Programme, Resident Representative to Nigeria, Mr. Mohamed Yahya, over $350 billion will be required for funding, particularly with the private sector driving this for the implementation of the SDGs by 2030. The banking and finance community is not left out of this conversation as they look at the need to drive this. The 13th Annual Bankers Conference, powered by the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, is looking at facilitating a sustainable future, the role of banking and finance. With me today on this show to discuss this is the President of the CIBN, Mr. Bayo Olugbemi, FCIB. Good morning and nice to have you on the show.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here with you.
Yes. Mr. Bayo, of course, we've seen that everything is driving towards sustainability and development in terms of the fact that we need to have a cleaner environment, we need to have human capital development triple, we need also to have gender inclusion and every other component as listed out in the SDGs. And CIBN is driving this conference focusing on this theme. We'd like to understand why you've also joined this narrative and why this conference is focusing on this theme.
Thank you very much. Of course, this is the 13th Banking and Finance Annual Conference. However, we've had over 55 conferences since the establishment of CIBN. It used to be called Annual Bankers Conference. But some 13 years ago, we took a decision to be more inclusive than what it was before. So we changed the name of the conference to Annual Banking and Finance. So it won't be strictly for bankers, but it will be for professionals in the banking and finance industry, and of course, as stakeholders. So this year's conference, like we said, is facilitating a sustainable future, the role of banking and finance. Mind our word, we didn't say the role of bankers. We said the role of banking and finance.
Yes.
So this is predicated on the need to evaluate the role of banking and finance industry in engendering an all-inclusive sustainable growth, as well as offering direction to Nigerian banks, financial institutions, regulators, policymakers, and of course other stakeholders on how to reposition the industry for relevance in the new world order by leveraging on digitization to boost Nigeria's economy. And we all know that, fortunately enough, actually, we chose this topic around February, not before the lockdown. But I think we were forward-looking and we knew what we need to do in future, and the COVID-19 just came in to really give Philip or to confirm the conference theme that we are choosing.
Yes, and this conference is taking a hybrid format. You know that,
yes.
that is quite interesting. It's a unique development for the first time, I believe.
Yeah.
So can you take us through the logistics around this hybrid format, which you're among the first to do? We know other conferences that will come after yours that will take the hybrid format, and further insight to the quality of speakers we're expecting for this conference.
Okay, thank you very much. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought about what we call the new normal. And if you look back 3-4 months ago, about 5 months ago, thereabout, when we were actually preparing for the election, that was when the lockdown started. And we went ahead, we did the election all virtual. And by the time we were doing the inauguration, the thing has eased a little bit. So few of us, the office holders, the new office holders, our assessors, the judge, and a few of our people, few of our past presidents, were there at the banker's house, and while hundreds of others were online. So we are not new, or we are not strangers to this kind of hybrid programs. And we have done a lot of other conferences or webinar and whatever using hybrid solutions. Some of us being at the banker's house, while others are at various locations all over the world. So the reality on the ground is that we cannot have 1,000 people or more as we used to have at the Congress Hall
at one venue. Yes.
One venue. So what we now do is even more novel than just being an hybrid. We have 2 studios, 2 physical venues. Lagos, that's the banker's house, our Ijiwere Hall, while the main program will be at the Congress of Transcorp Hotel in Abuja. And of course, thousands will join online. So this year, we hope to have about 2,500 participants cut across the globe. Before, it was restricted to only people who are in Nigeria, except maybe once in a while where speakers actually spoke to us using the telecast. But that was restricted to only speakers. But for this year, both the speakers, some speakers will be from outside Nigeria speaking to us, while a lot of participants will actually do it from outside Nigeria and wherever they are from. And it's also novel in the sense that it will be the first time we are having a free-paying conference. Everybody who participates this time around will not pay.
Wow, that's nice to note. So we can join.
And you also talked about the speakers.
Yes, quality of speakers. Yes, and guests.
Of course. The main, the chief host of the day will be our regulator, the CBN governor, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, CON FCIB. And of course, I will be the supporting chief host as the president chairman of council of CIBN. We have put together an array of eggs, if you like, all over the world. And the leading speaker, or the lead speaker, who is the former Minister of Trade and Finance in Nigeria, is Dr. Okechukwu Enelamah, who is also currently the chairman of Capital Alliance, African Capital Alliance. He will set the tone as the conference keynote speaker. Of course, I don't have to tell us who he is.
Definitely.
He's experienced.
Minister of Industry.
He was a medical doctor. A medical doctor turned accountant and investment banker, and he has led a lot of initiatives over the years before he even became the Minister of Industry and Trade in Nigeria. Of course, we have Princess Ade Joke Fulire, who was former Deputy Governor of Lagos State. He's now the SSA to the President on SDG. Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, Special Advisor to the President on Ease of Doing Business. Of course, the good chairman of First Bank, Dr. Ottoabasi will chair one of the sessions. Dr. Ottoabasi is CFR, an FCIB, FCA, is General Banker, and one of the whole bankers that are still standing today. He will be there as chairman of the session. Of course, the chairman of the conference committee is Mr. Patrick Akin Ontan, the MD CEO of EcoBank Nigeria. We have Dr. Dumola Febule, the group CEO of Sambic Holdings PLC. We have Dr. Adeshola Adedotan, Chief Executive Officer, First Bank of Nigeria Limited. We have Mr. Namde Kumko, GMD CEO of Fidelity Bank. We have Ms. Folake Fatogbe, Director of Risk Management, Central Bank of Nigeria. We have Mrs. Sholakwe Hammond, Special Advisor to the Lagos State Governor on Sustainable Development Goals and Investment. And the list is endless. We have Abubakar Sulaiman, PMD CEO of Salim Bank, and so on and so forth. We have a lot of people cut across the banking and finance
space, and even the sustainable development
finance space. Not only that, even we are bringing people from the creative industry. We are even bringing people from the creative industry. We have Ms. Mr. Silva, veteran Hollywood actress and executive director of Lufodo Group of Companies. So they are not like that. Not like that.
That's interesting.
All walks of life, not just only investment and banking. All walks of life.
And with this array of speakers, we expect definitely that at the end of the conference, we would have a robust communique, which policymakers should have, because one of the major challenges identified, even in what we've been covering in the last 3 weeks around sustainability development in Nigeria, is the need for all actors to collaborate, have a clear action plan, and particularly from the financial side, commercialize it. So it's even apt that the CIBN is looking at financing sustainability in Nigeria.
So on that, over the years, when we have a program like this, we normally come out with a communique, which we send to all stakeholders, policymakers, regulators, our operators, our customers. We actually make it public. Apart from sending it to the relevant authorities, we also publish it in the papers so that everybody will know what we have discussed and what we have achieved.
Definitely. But I believe this is a step in the right direction, looking at how we can particularly finance sustainability. Let's look at your advocacy, which is something that your predecessors have been doing, and I know you're on board, and already you're also leading that path in terms of engaging policymakers from the fiscal to monetary side to look at how we can create a more investor-friendly environment that can attract sustainable investments, because we face challenges of investments in Nigeria. The first quarter, second quarter, 2020 capital importation report shows that we'll have low investment for now. We need to scale. But one area we need to scale is sustainable development investments. So how is it on your end in terms of engaging the fiscal and monetary policymakers to make it more conducive to attract this kind of investments?
Thank you very much. One of our cardinal point in CIBN is to engage and engage and engage. We engage stakeholders, not only policymakers. We make it a point of view to even engage our students and our potential students. We go to as low as going to primary school and the secondary school to teach them investments. That way we catch them young. We really see their interest in investment as they grow. So how much more with our policymakers and our regulators? So it's our remit, and it's a familiar ground for us that we engage with every stakeholder through various knowledge events organized by the CIBN Center for Financial Studies. The center usually organizes breakfast sessions and roundtable discussions on topical and emerging issues in the industry. And this year alone, we have done, even during the within the period of this pandemic, with the lockdown and when it has been eased, in the past 5 months or so, we have done 3 of such breakfast programs, albeit online. But early in the year, we actually had a breakfast program to dissect and look at the 2020 budget. And of course, our recommendations were made in the relevant authority. So in 2020, the Institute launched what we call the CIBN Advocacy Dialogue Series, which speaks to such issues and is typically held virtually because, like I said, because of the current pandemic. So during such events, members of the banking community are given the opportunity to engage with policymakers, and the outcome of such agreements are detailed in a communique which is disseminated to the relevant policymakers. Like I said before, there's no big event, major event that we do that we don't come out with communique which we distribute to every stakeholder, especially the policymakers.
All right, so indeed, the advocacy is really taking shape. Let's look at capacity development in terms of skills. You know, you're holding this conference is very good, but also the skills for bankers to be able to really relate and provide that service when it has to do with financing sustainability and also digital skills. Those 2 skills would be very critical. How are you going about it? Skills for sustainable banking and finance and digital skills.
In terms of skills development, like I said earlier on, it's also our remit. I mean, one of our major reason for existing is to develop skills in the banking and finance industry to bring about ethics and professionalism and ensuring that all our people are properly skilled and well engaged. So this is in collaboration with CIBN Center for Financial Studies, like I mentioned earlier on.
CFS,
on
yes.
May 7th, on May 7th this year, we had our second edition of the CIBN Advocacy Dialogue series, and the topic was Enhanced Sustainable Banking Model. And of course, the session was chaired by no other person than the Deputy Governor, one of the Deputy Governors of CIBN, Ms. Aisha Ahmed, and over 200 people participated across the globe. And the purpose is to ensure that we skilled, our people are tooled and skilled in the area of sustainable development. And of course, we've also had collaboration with IFC in the provision of a certification in this respect. And maybe along the line too, I will also tell us that we have reviewed our syllabus, and a lot has been put there, including green banking, sustainable development goal, and our members are properly skilled. Not only in the area
you can go on with that, sir, because that's the next part I was going to ask you about your reviewed syllabus and how competitive it is with global banking institutes.
Okay, thank you very much. I was saying every 5 years, it's a policy in CIBN, a maximum of 5 years. It can be earlier than that if we see that there's any development that we need to quickly align with. But normally, every 5 years, we do review our syllabus. But this particular one took a different dimension. Unlike before, we just put people together within them and learn of some week and ask them to come back with a robust syllabus. But this time I was to actually partner with one of the big four consulting firms in the world, PwC. And you agree with me where great international exposure they have been where. So we partnered with them to actually look at the current syllabus with a view to ensuring that the professional banking exam is standard and can compare with international best practices and standards. And so we ensure that the contents of the current syllabus are robust, they're contemporary, and are imagined in the banking and finance industry. And of course, it's a radical departure from the existing one, and it's expected to revolutionize banking and banking education, not only in Nigeria, but in the whole of Africa. You agree with me, or maybe I should let you know that we conduct exams not only in Nigeria, but in other parts of West Africa, in Gambia, in Sierra Leone, in Liberia, and I think one or two other ones.
Yes, Gambia,
and of course, we give support to other banking institutes within Africa. Yeah. We also give support to other banking institutes like Institute of Bankers Ghana and other ones within Africa. So the new syllabus has been so structured. The new syllabus has been so restructured and modules making it broader in coverage and knowledge. And this is different from the subject by subject format in the existing syllabus. Diploma, intermediate, professional, and the chartered banker level. And each of them consisting 4 modules, as well as an additional 7 elective modules for the chartered banker level, out of which a candidate is required to pass at least 1 elective module. In fact, we are about to also introduce another one that has to do with we talk about the sustainable development goal. And also, apart from that, we ensure that there is practical application of knowledge of the candidates, and there is a compulsory feature now known as experiential learning module for all candidates who have completed the first three levels of the syllabus qualification as this. So, in practical, we also want to make it experiential, and I mean, not only theory, we want to make it as much as practical as possible and experiential.
Experiential learning. Yeah, that's nice to know. I like the green banking aspect. I like the fact that you're also looking at sustainable development financing models. Then, in terms of partnerships for training programs, are we looking at new partnerships, particularly with continental and international bodies?
Thank you very much. I earlier mentioned IFC. Yeah. IFC, International Financial Corporation, is one of our partners. We also partners with top-notch institutes all over the world, both banking institutes and institutions of higher learning, like the University of Bangor in Scotland, one of the oldest universities in the world, and other banking institutes across Africa, Europe. Of course, we have what we call the Global Banking Education Standard, which brings together banking institutes all over the world to set standard for banking education. And of course, today, one of our past president Segun, I know, FCIB, chaired that board. So we collaborate with as many institutions as possible, internationally and of course within Africa and locally also. In Nigeria, we have partnership with a lot of universities, especially the Pan-African University, Lagos Business School, NISA, and the rest of them.
Okay, that's really important, and it will help to deepen your syllabus and capacity development programs. But let's look at some of the developing issues as it affects the economy and, of course, the banking and finance sector. First, recently, the GSI, Global Standard Policy, was released by the Central Bank of Nigeria for deposit money banks and other financial institutions. I'd like to get your perspective as president of CIBN. How will this guarantee financial stability and improve debt recovery in the country?
Thank you very much. We were told by CBN that within the first 2 weeks, when this was flagged off officially and the rule of engagement released, billions of claims were made. And of course, it has to go through that scrutiny, and eventually about 50 million has been recovered through the GSI. What is GSI? Simply put, is a global standing instruction. As customers of bank, if you want to take a loan now, like before, you have to sign some indemnity, some document that give the bank the right of set off. Either though, you can only do that within your own bank. But now, the banking community is one, and the purpose is to ensure that both the bankers and the banking community, especially those that take loan, are more disciplined in terms of the use of the loan and ability, not just only ability, but responsibility to ensure that they pay back as and when due. We have cases over the years that have been around for some years now, close to 40 years in the banking and finance industry. And I've seen cases or read papers or read circulars when I was in one of the biggest banks in Nigeria. Read circulars of we are looking for a person who is in also so branch. Meanwhile, that person over the weekend has just gone to a social party where he was praised, and maybe in fact there was a particular one some years ago in the 80s, early 90s, that one of the musicians had just waxed an L3 for, and the bank is looking for him to recover their money. So that will not happen again with this GSI. There will be more discipline. You know that if you are banking, trigger recovery, bank we cooperate, of course, using the CBN standards. So I think there will be more discipline. there will be more recoveries. Somebody had asked for what are the past ones. The past ones are not inclusive. It's not retroactive. It is for new loans from, I think, August last year when the policy came into being. So the guideline has been given now, and anybody going forward who falls foul of this, of course, we have their money in other banks. Unless you don't have money in other banks, it should be covered. And for now, I think we are starting with the individuals, and I think CBN is working on making it also global, so that the corporate bodies too will be involved. So I believe there will be more discipline in the industry, and there will be less impairment with this policy.
Yeah, financial stability and less impairment. In 1 minute, Mr. Bayo Olugbemi, can you speak to the recent growth of the financial services sector? It continues to grow amidst the fact that we contracted in the second quarter of 2020 by 6.1%. And of course, the analysis is that we're heading to another recession. Of course, several economies in the world are already in recession, like UK, Japan, Brazil, and even Canada. So the financial service sector still carries growth. What can be done more from the policy side to encourage it to unlock more growth to the economy?
You see, achieving sustainable goes beyond the monetary and fiscal policies. And of course, you know that we are in an unprecedented times, taking into consideration the COVID-19 pandemic. We discovered that a lot of CBN and the financial authorities are doing a lot in the area of palliatives, and discounted loans are being offered to SMEs, the bank customers. Of course, agri sector, health sector are not left out. So this relief packages, we believe, should also be offered to selected banks with significant exposure to sectors of the economy affected by the pandemic. And what you are seeing in the growth of the financial system or the banking system is the fact that every hand is on deck to ensuring that there is no failure, and that the industries, the businesses, the real sector are being financed, are being funded. And that's why CBN came with all sorts of palliatives and incentives to ensuring that banks will not only give loan from their own capital from what they have in their reserve, but also from on lending through CBN. I mean, CBN has been giving a lot of, you have the 50 billion SMEs fund, you have all sort of billions and billions of funds, and of course, the financial, developing financial institutions, DFIs, or development financial institutions, DFIs like Bank of Industry, like DBN, are not also left out. So all these people are pumping money through the commercial and merchant banks to the needy sector of the economy, and this is actually helping to galvanize and boost our economy. So when money comes themselves, we have their own little court in terms of what I call it finance fee or arrangement fee. So it portends good news for banks, and that's the reason why you see that the the banks are doing well on the stock exchange. And I mean, the result so far has been shown that they're not doing badly at all.
Supporting the real sector. All right, it's been nice having this conversation with you, but what are your closing thoughts, particularly around this topic of sustainable financing and Nigeria? I mean, sustainable banking and financing for Nigeria's development. It's very critical now. We are seeing that importance. What would you like to part with your closing thoughts?
Thank you very much. When you talk about sustainability, it means goes into the future. It doesn't make any sense at all, either economy or political sense, to think short term. Yes, there are things, there are some areas where you think short term, but your thinking short term is to just bridge the gap for you to not think long term. Sustainability is talking about thinking long term. And that's one of the reasons why we chose this topic, that every member of faculty, discussants, participants, we think long term, not only about the fiscal policies, but also about the monetary policies and about the economy in general. So my shorter part is that for this our conference, we encourage everybody that needs to be there, either virtually or physically, to come and contribute their quota in looking at that topic and bringing out the solutions as if you want to call it that way, to policymakers, regulators, and even we operators to begin to run with, because we believe that we have a good economy in our hand, but there are some structural defects that we need to look into and prefer solutions by giving recommendations to those in government.
Yeah. So indeed, there's a huge opportunity.
But that has to come through a coordination and cooperation, particularly from the banking and finance community. That's the thinking? Okay, amen. Thank you very, very much, Mr. Bayo Olugbemi, President of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria. Yes, for this conversation around the 13th Annual Banking and Finance Conference, which will be looking at the theme, facilitating a sustainable future. And I'll put it in that context for Nigeria, the role of banking and finance. Because if we're going to go green, we're going to be sustainable, we will need to really talk about the commercialization and the financing aspect. And we hope that the conference, which is next week from September 15 to 16, 2020, holding 9 a.m. daily, a hybrid conference, virtual and of course at 2 centers in the Federal Capital Territory and in Lagos, would at the end bring that compendium of thoughts into a communique, and policymakers can bring them into their strategy. And of course, the Sustainable Development Goals Office in the presidency would take that up, and hopefully this will help lead us to achieve the SDGs that has 17 goals and components by 2030. And indeed, CIBN will not be forgotten as part of the people that helped to catalyze this. Thank you once again, Mr. Bayo Olugbemi, for the time. It was nice having this conversation with you, and we hope to have you subsequent editions to discuss around developments in the banking and finance space. That will be all for this edition of the Economy and Politics show. You can join our website, www.prochange.com, to watch our videos with our news reports and analysis. Don't forget, by 10 a.m. we have a conversation on our market review program as we look at developments in the financial and capital markets as it relates to economy. To come your way again, thank you for watching. Have a nice day and stay safe.